What happens when America's favorite home renovation queen faces off against one of morning television's most beloved hosts? The answer might shock you, because what started as a routine promotional interview quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime TV history. Joanna Gaines, known for her calm demeanor and Southern charm, found herself in a battle of words that would leave viewers stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew about both women. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this explosive confrontation. The morning started like any other at the Today Show studios in New York City. Joanna Gaines had flown in from Texas to promote her latest book, a collection of family recipes and home design tips that had already climbed the bestseller lists. She sat in the green room, her signature flowing hair perfectly styled, wearing a cream-colored sweater that embodied her approachable yet polished brand. The producers had briefed her on the segment, standard questions about her new project, family life with Chip, and their continued success with Magnolia Network. Hoda Kotb entered the studio with her usual energy, coffee in hand and notes scattered. Across her desk, she had interviewed Joanna before, and their previous conversations had been warm and easy, filled with laughter about parenting struggles and the chaos of running a media empire while raising 5 children. But today felt different from the moment Hoda reviewed her research notes. Her production team had uncovered some interesting inconsistencies in Joanna's recent public statements, and Hoda, ever the journalist, felt compelled to dig deeper. The cameras rolled as Hoda introduced her guest with her trademark smile. Joining us now is the woman who has transformed not just countless homes, but an entire industry. Please welcome Joanna Gaines. The applause was warm as Joanna walked onto the set, waving to the audience with that familiar, genuine smile that had made her a household name. "Thank you so much for having me, Hoda. It's always such a pleasure to be here," Joanna said, settling into the interview chair with practiced ease. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, and she maintained perfect posture. Every inch the picture of composed professionalism. "Well, we love having you here. Let's talk about this beautiful new book. I have to say, the photography is absolutely stunning. Tell us about the inspiration behind combining family recipes with design elements," Hoda began, holding up the glossy cover for the cameras. Joanna's face lit up as she launched into her prepared talking points. "You know, Hoda, for me it's always been about creating spaces where families can come together. Food and design are both about nourishment, whether that's feeding the body or feeding the soul. This book is really a celebration of how those two worlds intersect in our daily lives." "That's beautiful," Hoda nodded, but there was something in her tone that suggested she was building towards something more substantial. "Speaking of family and authenticity, I want to ask you about something that's been making waves in the design community lately. There have been some discussions about the labor practices on Magnolia properties, specifically regarding fair wages for the craftspeople and contractors who make your vision come to life." The shift in Joanna's expression was subtle but noticeable. To anyone paying close attention, her smile remained, but it tightened slightly around the edges. "Well, Hoda, I think there might be some misinformation circulating about that. We've always prided ourselves on working with local artisans and paying competitive rates." "Competitive rates, yes, but some former contractors have come forward saying that, while the work is steady, the compensation doesn't always match the high-end results that viewers see on television." One carpenter mentioned that he worked on 3 separate Magnolia projects and felt the pay scale didn't reflect the level of craftsmanship expected or the profit margins on the finished homes. Hoda pressed, her journalistic instincts taking over. Joanna shifted slightly in her chair, her hands clasping together more tightly. "I think it's important to understand that we work within industry standards. Every contractor we work with agrees to the terms up front, and we've never had anyone express these concerns directly to us. But isn't it possible that contractors might hesitate to voice concerns directly, given the power dynamic and the potential impact on future work opportunities?" Hoda's question cut through the studio's suddenly tense atmosphere. "I'm not sure. I appreciate the implication there, Hoda. We've built our entire brand on integrity and treating people fairly. Chip and I didn't grow up with money. We understand what it means to work hard for every dollar." Joanna's voice remained controlled, but there was steel beneath the Southern accent now. "I'm not questioning your background or your values, Joanna. I'm asking about current practices because when you're charging seven figures for renovations and selling multi-million-dollar homes, shouldn't that prosperity trickle down to everyone who makes those dreams possible? Hoda leaned forward slightly, her tone professional but persistent. What exactly are you suggesting? That we're somehow exploiting the people we work with? Because that's completely false and frankly insulting. Joanna's composure was beginning to crack, her voice rising just enough to signal her growing frustration. I'm suggesting that when you become a brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars, there's a responsibility that comes with that success. And some people are questioning whether that responsibility is being met, Hoda replied, her voice steady but firm. The studio audience, which had been quietly attentive, now seemed to collectively hold its breath. This was not the warm, fuzzy interview they had expected from America's home renovation sweetheart and their beloved morning show host. Joanna took a deep breath, clearly trying to regain her composure, but the damage was already done. The carefully constructed facade of the perfect interview had crumbled, and now both women were operating in uncharted territory. Hoda, I came here to talk about my book, about inspiring families to create beautiful spaces together. I didn't come here to be ambushed with unfounded accusations, and I respect that, but as a journalist, I have to ask the tough questions. Your fans deserve transparency, especially when your brand is built on trust and authenticity, Hoda responded, not backing down despite the obvious tension crackling between them. Transparency. Let me be transparent then. We employ over 200 people directly through our various businesses. We've revitalized an entire town that was struggling economically before we arrived. We've created opportunities for countless local businesses and artisans, but somehow that's not enough because a few people want to make headlines by twisting our success into something negative. Joanna's voice was getting sharper, her famous warmth replaced by a defensive edge. Number one is twisting anything, Joanna. These are legitimate concerns raised by people who worked directly on your projects. One electrician said he was asked to work 60-hour weeks at standard rates because the timeline was so compressed for television production. Another said materials costs were deducted from their final payments without prior agreement. These aren't headlines seeking attention. These are working people sharing their experiences, Hoda countered, consulting her notes with practiced professionalism. Those are isolated incidents being blown out of proportion. In any business this size, there are going to be occasional misunderstandings or miscommunications, but to paint our entire operation with that brush is irresponsible journalism. Joanna shot back, her hands now gesturing more emphatically. So you're admitting there were incidents, because earlier you said no one had ever expressed these concerns directly, Hoda pointed out, her tone remaining level but pointed. I'm saying that in a company our size, with hundreds of projects over the years. If you look hard enough for problems, you'll find something to complain about. That doesn't mean there's a systemic issue, Joanna replied, but her voice betrayed her frustration at being caught in the contradiction. But shouldn't those isolated incidents be learning opportunities rather than dismissed as complaints? When you're the face of a brand that promotes family values and community building, doesn't that create a higher standard of accountability? Hoda pressed, her journalistic training evident in how she built upon each response. Higher standard were held to impossible standards that no other business in America faces. Every decision we make is scrutinized. Every employee interaction is analyzed. Every business practice is dissected by people who have never run a company or employed a single person. It's exhausting, and frankly, it's unfair. Joanna's voice cracked slightly, revealing genuine emotion beneath the defensiveness. But that scrutiny comes with the territory of being public figures, doesn't it? You've built a media empire on the premise that you're different, that you care more, that you do things the right way. When that image is challenged, the response matters, Hoda said, her tone softening slightly, but her position remaining firm. The response matters. What response would satisfy you, Hoda? Should we apologize for being successful? Should we pay every contractor double just to avoid criticism? Should we stop creating jobs and opportunities because some people prefer to focus on problems rather than solutions? Joanna's composure was fully slipping now, her frustration boiling over. I'm not asking you to apologize for success. I'm asking you to acknowledge that with great influence comes great responsibility. When young entrepreneurs look to you as a model, when families save money to hire contractors inspired by your methods, don't you think there's an obligation to ensure those practices are as ethical as they are profitable? Hoda's question hung in the air like a challenge. Ethical? You're questioning our ethics now. Chip and I have given our lives to this work. We've sacrificed privacy, family time, personal peace, all to inspire people and create something meaningful. And this is what we get, attacked on national television by someone who's supposed to be a friend. Joanna's voice rose, the hurt now mixing with anger. I am your friend, which is exactly why this conversation matters. Friends ask hard questions. They don't just smile and nod when important issues need to be addressed. Your platform gives you incredible influence, and people trust you. That trust comes with responsibilities, Hoda replied, her own emotion beginning to show through her professional demeanor. Don't lecture me about responsibility. We've donated millions to charity. We've rebuilt communities. We've created thousands of jobs. But apparently none of that matters if a few disgruntled contractors decide to air their grievances publicly. Joanna's hands were now clenched in her lap, her knuckles white with tension. It's not about a few contractors, Joanna. It's about the pattern of how success is shared or not shared throughout your organization. When you're making millions per episode and selling homes for 7 figures, shouldn't the people who physically build those dreams see some reflection of that success in their compensation? Hoda's question struck at the heart of the matter. You have no idea what our financial obligations are. You don't know about the insurance costs, the legal fees, the equipment expenses, the crew salaries, the location fees, the post-production costs. It's easy to judge when you don't understand the complexities of actually running these operations. Joanna fired back, her southern accent becoming more pronounced as her emotional state intensified. Then help me understand. Walk me through how you ensure that your success benefits everyone involved in creating it. Because right now, it looks like the people at the top of your organization are doing very well, while the people doing the physical labor are struggling to make ends meet. Despite working on million-dollar projects, Hoda challenged, leaning forward in her chair. That final question seemed to strike a nerve deeper than any before it. Joanna's entire body tensed, and for a moment, she sat in complete silence, staring at Hoda with an expression that mixed disbelief with barely contained fury. The studio lights seemed to burn hotter, and the cameras captured every micro-expression crossing her face. You want me to walk you through our business model on national television? You want me to justify every financial decision we've made to build something? From nothing. This isn't journalism, Hoda. This is a hit job. Joanna's voice was low and controlled, but there was a dangerous edge to it that hadn't been there before. It's not a hit job, it's accountability journalism. When you put yourself in the public, I, as a role model and thought leader, these questions come with the territory. I'm giving you the opportunity to address these concerns directly rather than letting speculation continue, Hoda replied. But even she seemed surprised by the intensity of Joanna's reaction. Opportunity? This feels more like a trap. You invite me here under false pretenses, pretending this would be a friendly conversation about my book. And instead, you've turned it into an interrogation about business practices that you clearly don't understand. Joanna said, her hands now gripping the arms of her chair. I understand that when someone builds a brand worth hundreds of millions of dollars by promoting values of community and fairness, people have a right to ask whether those values extend to business practices. That's not an interrogation. That's basic accountability, Hoda shot back, her own patience beginning to wear thin. Basic accountability. You're sitting there, in your million-dollar contract job, in your designer clothes, questioning how I pay contractors, and you want to talk about accountability. When was the last time you worried about making payroll or keeping a business afloat? During a recession, Joanna's voice rose sharply, the gloves officially coming off. My salary isn't built on the backs of craftspeople whose stories I'm supposed to represent fairly. You've made yourself the face of authentic American values, while apparently underpaying the people who make your vision reality. That's the difference, Hoda fired back, her professional composure finally cracking underpaying. You keep saying that word like it's fact instead of opinion. We pay competitive wages, we follow all labor laws, we provide steady work in a volatile industry. But somehow that's not good enough for you because it doesn't fit your narrative. Joanna stood up. Abruptly, her chair squeaking against the studio floor. Joanna, please sit down. We're in the middle of a live interview, Hoda said, suddenly realizing how far this had escalated beyond anything she had intended. No, I don't think I will sit down. I think I'm done being lectured by someone who has never built anything, never employed anyone, never taken the risks that come with actually creating something meaningful. You sit in this studio and judge other people's work while contributing nothing but criticism. Joanna's voice was now loud enough that the studio audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. That's not fair, and you know it. I've spent decades telling important stories and holding powerful people accountable. That's exactly what journalism is supposed to do, Hoda replied, her own voice rising to match Joanna's energy. Important stories? Is that what this is? Because it feels like you're trying to tear down someone who's actually making a positive difference in the world just to create a viral moment for your show. Is this really the journalism you're proud of? Joanna took a step back from her chair, creating physical distance that the cameras immediately captured. I'm proud of asking tough questions that need to be asked. If you can't handle being questioned about your business practices, maybe you shouldn't be running a public company and positioning yourself as a thought leader. Hoda responded, standing up herself now, the pretense of a normal interview completely abandoned. Can't handle being questioned. I've been answering your questions for 20 minutes while you've twisted every response into something negative. This isn't journalism, it's ambush television, and I won't be a part of it anymore, Joanna said, reaching down to unclip her microphone pack. Joanna, please don't do this. We can work through this conversation like adults, Hoda pleaded, suddenly realizing that she was about to lose control of the situation entirely. Adults. Adults don't invite people onto their shows under false pretenses just to attack their character and business practices. Adults don't use their platform to spread unfounded accusations while hiding behind the guise of journalism. Joanna replied, successfully removing her microphone and letting it drop to the floor with a sharp thud that echoed through the studio. These aren't unfounded accusations. These are legitimate concerns raised by real people who worked for your company. Hoda called out, her voice carrying a note of desperation as she watched her interview falling apart in real time. Real people with real grievances that you've decided to amplify without giving me a fair chance to address them properly. You've already made up your mind about what story you want to tell, and nothing I say is going to change that narrative, Joanna said, taking several steps toward the edge of the interview area. The story I want to tell is the truth. If you walk away from this conversation, you're walking away from the opportunity to tell your side of that truth, Hoda said, making one final attempt to salvage the interview. Joanna paused at the edge of the set, turning back to face Hoda and the cameras one last time. My side of the truth. My side is 20 years of hard work, hundreds of jobs created, communities revitalized, and families inspired to build something beautiful together. If that's not good enough for you, then we have nothing more to discuss. With that, she walked off the set, leaving Hoda standing alone under the studio lights, facing a camera crew that was frantically trying to figure out how to handle the unprecedented situation. The audience sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed between two of television's most beloved personalities. We'll be right back, Hoda said weakly, as the show cut to commercial. But everyone knew that nothing would be quite the same when they returned. So there you have it, one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history, when a simple book promotion turned into a career-defining confrontation. What do you think really triggered Joanna's dramatic exit? Was Hoda's line of questioning fair journalism, or did it cross the line into ambush territory? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which side you think was right in this explosive clash.